Yo, yo.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing on this wonderful Wednesday? It is May the 4th. For some of us Star Wars geeks, it's May the 4th be with you. So, a lot of Star Wars parties are going to be jumping off today. And then for you other people, we got Cinco de Mayo tomorrow. So, it's quite the week, quite the week. And we got a lot to talk about. Sonya, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing good. I got tickled. May the fourth be with you. I
Yeah.
never heard that, but
Oh
I
man, you
but I
missing out on
showed
the whole
unheard a
culture.
Cinco de Mayo.
Yep, May the 4th. Those are those Star Wars parties. We just get together and we watch, Attack of the Clones or the just any of them, and we have a good time nerding out with Star Wars. And then of course, Cinco de Mayo. All our Mexican restaurants are gonna be packed. You got to get there early. Don't try to get there right at dinner time because you're gonna be waiting. Because when we go out to Cinco de Mayo, we staying. We ain't in there just to eat and leave. We in there to eat, drink, and be merry. So don't get there at 3. That'll be your best bet. Get there at 3.
Hey, LaQuisha. LaQuisha just sent me a picture of my baby. He was
Oh
waving
wow.
his eyes up. So it's a breath of sunshine. She said he's spoiled. So I'm about
Yes.
to get by and see him again. Good morning, LaQuisha.
Good morning, Miss Chumley. And some of the things that we're going to talk about today, we got graduation coming up. I don't know about you guys, but I got a niece that's graduating. Looking forward to that. Talking about TISA, which is the new student funding formula that replaced the BEP, which is the Basic Education Plan. So we want to talk a little bit about that because that's going to make a big difference on like how they weight it and how our school systems get funded. We know a lot of kids ended TN Ready last Friday. Some ended on Monday. And so pretty excited about that. And we want to give you guys information on what to even look for in that once the scores start coming out and you guys have access to it. Did I miss anything, Sonya?
No, no. Did we say graduation?
Yep, graduation is coming up. It's going to start as early as the 16th to 17th for some schools, and then it'll go all the way to the week of the 24th.
Yeah. So good times for a lot of people.
Yes, yes, yes. And talk about graduation, Sonny. I know you have had a few of them, and I had the pleasure to lead a graduation. But what does graduation mean in our community, and why is it so relevant and important?
And like sometimes I see people crying
Mm-hmm.
and when asked like what they're crying about, for some people like it's a milestone that they felt like they wouldn't reach.
Mm-hmm.
Um there are a lot of people who they're not even making to 18, right? You
Yep.
know, and then it's a moment of pride for I think our families, but in particular in our community. Um, and then I think for a lot of people, like that's where it stops for them. Like
Yeah.
they graduate from high school, they accomplish that, and they may not have the opportunity to go on to further their education at the time or feel like they don't. So um for in our community it signifies adulthood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um that's another thing. Yeah, like that's often the things that I hear when I'm talking to, families in the community. And then for some, it's that entryway into the next step of college. Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, graduation. I mean, all of those things. I think as parents, grandparents, uncles, aunties, family, friends, it's the opportunity to see somebody, like you said, cross over into adulthood to finish something that they started years ago,
Hmm.
all the way back in kindergarten, and some people pre-K at the age of 3. And so, watching your loved ones walk across that stage just signifies that growth, success, and new opportunities, but really being able to complete something that it's not easy. It's not a sprint. It's
Mhm.
K through or pre-K through 12 marathon. And for some, the marathon continues on one end. We're going to college on the other side. The marathon continues with going right into the workforce.
Yeah, and celebration should give us momentum,
Yes.
and I think that it's great to celebrate, you know, those accomplishments,
Mm-hmm.
because it does give us momentum, and we all need momentum. We all need something to look forward to and to celebrate.
Yep. So we look forward. We'll post it. I'm pretty sure you guys got it if you've heard, but we'll post it on our page sometime this week or next week, just a graduation schedule. But as we talk about graduation and some kids, 12th graders leaving out the system, let's talk a little bit about signing. And I'll pull up an article, but last week, I want to say it was last Friday. I think the legislature ended for the year. And as they ended, one of the big things that they were able to do and broadcast out that they passed the new student funding formula that replaces the BP. BP had been around for, a little bit close to 30 years or over 30 years. And it started with a lawsuit of the small counties suing because they couldn't get a fair share because a lot of the big cities, we fund our schools through property tax. And when you have a smaller county, um, it's not like that. And so they were missing out. And we created BEP to make it more equitable. Equity was being talked about 30, 40 years ago. But then, right. I don't know what they called it though, but the smaller counties was like, this ain't fair. We need to be on the same page. And
Right.
they said, let it be known.
Mhm.
And they sued them, and they said, all right, we're going to let you know. And so here we are again, 2022. Some of the largest cities and counties sued, and now we got the changeover. Some things change and some things stay the same.
Man, so I'm gonna break it down to y'all the way I thought about it. So they got tired of arguing back and forth, and they said, "We're gonna go on and vote on this before we leave, so we don't want to hear nothing about this when we get back."
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna conjure up what else we're gonna do next session. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pass this. I mean, although it's still in litigation, and we'll probably still be sued about it,
Yep.
we're gonna go ahead because we got the power, and we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and we're gonna make this decision.
Gonna let
Boom.
y'all know just like that.
So that's how the conversation went at Panera Bread over coffee.
Right.
That's
Right. Or at the city club. So I just want to read just a little bit about it, just so we can give people an update and send you to the site, whether it's the Tennessee and the Chalk V. But yep, of course, this last Friday said Governor Bill Lee's education plan set for final passage after clearing the House and Senate committees. Let me take this video off. It randomly popped up. But it said its new funding plan is approaching the finish line after clearing finance committees in the House and Senate on Tuesday. It says the new formula provides a base allocation of $6,860 per pupil, but also allocates additional funding or weights for students from specific populations such as ELL, English language learners, or students living in poverty. Overall, the new plan adds about $1 billion to education in the state, increasing the total statewide funding to around $9 billion. And I just want to go back to here, Sonia. It says the new funding formula provides a base allocation, and it talks about additional funding. It talks about weights. What is that in your opinion? Like, what is that? The
When you
different
talk about
weights.
weights,
Yep.
so and I mean, it's not necessarily my opinion. That's what they said they were going to do. They were going to do um, weights, meaning looking at EL students, students with disabilities, students from um, um, impoverished or poverty condensed communities, and give them additional funding based on their needs. and those needs. I think what's not clear is how those weights are determined. Um,
Right. I
like,
agree.
if you have a child with autism versus a child with Down syndrome, like what does that look like?
What does that
If
look
that
like?
makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, both have disabilities, both have needs, but I'm not clear. And I don't think that it has been like totally like revealed as to like, well, how's that determined? And I think a lot of that is going to be like determined from the district, which
Mm-hmm.
is often scary for me
Mm-hmm.
because, one of the things when we think about diversity and when we think about equity, you always have to think about, you know, whether there be some bias or whether there be a difference between the have and have-nots. Um,
Yeah, and in reality, in my point, like how is it getting better for all kids? I think a lot of times, these lawsuits, these changes come from the upper echelon, right? But it wasn't a demand from communities that get affected the most. And you just start to ask yourself as we get a new funding formula, what does that really mean for, you know, clusters like the Maplewood or the Whites Creek cluster?
I think it's parents being able to use the system like more privileged parents. Like we've got to learn how to use those weights and what does that weight mean for my child and for the children in my community. And I think the opportunity is that we are in the beginning of it and we can try to figure it out sooner than later. Um, and we can't let anything like get past the front door. I always say that about racism. You can't let it in. You got to stop it at the door. Like same thing has to happen with this funding formula.
All
Like
right.
we're gonna have to be on this and kind of as parents like develop the knowledge around it
Mm-hmm.
because there will be other parents who will develop the knowledge around it and they'll use the system to their advantage. And so we have to learn how to use the system to our advantage. That's what we have to do.
Come on now. And as they talked about, I remember this wise guy had a lot of knowledge, but he remembered as we talk about the school to prison pipeline when they passed the three strikes law, right, or when they passed mandatory minimums for the average Joe. It didn't mean anything for the people in power who were in the prison industry. They knew things were about to get real and they were about to make some real money. And so as you look at even these weights, I just keep going back like, man, they passed this, they talked about it, people celebrated at the top. Everybody else in the community was like, I don't know why they celebrating that until it hit the fan. And so when we think about student funding formula, but how it actually makes it to the classrooms of the communities that need the most help, Black, brown, poor communities, we got to ask ourselves, like, what does this mean? And how do we, you said it, like, how do we make sure this benefits us?
Yeah, and I mean the opportunity is here.
Yeah.
And we're going to create more opportunities around this for parents to get an understanding so that they can activate that knowledge. You got to be able to use that knowledge, and you got to be able to use it to your advantage, and you got to be able to speak up when you
Mm-hmm.
see that things are not going the way that they should be. Like we should be far from that. We don't have enough money, and there's not enough money. Like we should be further away from talking about equity than we are.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
nothing has changed. I heard somebody say that they've been in education for 25 years. And I said to myself, well, what has changed? And they couldn't tell me. They couldn't tell me. And because nothing has changed. And so what the expectation should be is as we're looking at a funding formula that has outcomes
Mm-hmm.
attached to it, we should see some outcomes.
Yeah, but see, I think it has changed. It's really gotten worse. Like when we look at all things in our community, when we look at, growing up, we knew we were poor, but we were provided for. When you look at, we knew, it might not have been the best education, but we felt empowered. We were able to take it to Nashville State or to TSU or to a Trevecca. And now, as you look at the state of education, in the last 25 years, I mean, it's just, one of the things we ask our parents when we're doing the one-on-ones, we say, has the school system gotten better or worse since you left school? And I used to say since you graduated, and I started getting too much of a pause, and I realized what was happening. So now I just say when you left school, but just the state of our, yeah, definitely education. It's changed, but it's changed for the worse. And we're trying to figure out, at Propel, parents requiring our public education system to lead. We are in the community, and we'll tell you more about that on another day, but we're right in the community talking to parents, like not saying follow us, but saying partner with us, work with us. So as we build capacity, you build capacity, and we're able to figure this thing out.
Yeah. And what I do know is this. I do know when we unite, like when we build the knowledge of our parents, when
Mm-hmm.
we unite and activate them, they fight.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to fight? I'm not talking about Mike Tyson fighting.
Right.
I'm not talking about boxing and throwing rocks. I'm not talking about pulling out your thing and
Right. Right.
and shooting somebody. What I'm talking about is being able to take your knowledge and being able to navigate or disrupt the inequities
Mm-hmm.
in education. And because they are there, and no one can deny that they're there. Like I had, if they do, they lying. And and I'll tell them they lying. Like the inequities are there. They've been here, and we have not seen the change, any change for Black children that has
Mm-hmm.
been positive, and that's what we fight for, and that's what we're here for. So I totally agree with you, John. I misspoke. I said
No.
nothing's changed. What I meant was nothing's got better.
Right. None's got better. I
Yeah,
mean, we
it has
just,
not gotten better. And we talked about that, like when I went to even to White's Creek, when I went to Ewan Park, you
yeah.
know, I did feel love.
Yep.
Like I didn't walk out the building thinking like Miss Startup didn't love me or Miss Lanier
Mm-hmm.
or Miss Smith, like she didn't love, they didn't love me and care about me. It wasn't that I didn't get the top notch education I needed. There were a lot of things that weren't identified. But I did feel like somebody cared about me,
Right.
and you don't see that in school buildings.
Yeah. It's suffering. So as we talk about funding and being ready, I know I can't remember the date when it's gonna fully go into effect. I know they got hold harmless because some cities, I think Nashville and Memphis, maybe no, Nashville is gonna get the least of the new revenue and the new funds that are coming in.
Mhm.
Um, but as we think about that, we think about the new school year. And I want to shout out a couple of parents. I see Miss Taylor on here, who has just been holding it down for us. I see Miss Nicole Chrisman coming on, alumni of ours, and Krishan is in the class now. I see Dominique Gardner, who's been in there. LaQuisha Chumley started us off. Caitlin has always just been a rock star week in and week out. So thank you guys for that. And Miss Taylor says, I went to Kirkpatrick Elementary, and not one day did I leave and feel like the staff didn't care.
Yeah. And the thing about that I want to also add to that is that even enough?
Yep.
Is it enough for people to just care?
Yep.
I think you got to have both. You got to have, and I think it's what the imbalance is, right? You like those of us who came up, like you felt like you were cared for,
Mm-hmm.
you were liked, and to an extent you were loved, but did we receive the education that we needed?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is no, like
You're
we did.
right.
And you know, I often tell parents, I think what was that? We had somebody interview a parent that when Rose Banks came off the priority school
Yep.
list, the
Yep.
parent they interviewed and she talked about how nice some people were to her
Yep.
and her kids.
Yep.
But
I
I'm
remember
like,
that.
The kid can't read. Like, is that enough?
That's a good point. I remember that one vividly. I think she was saying it was on the interview. She was like, "Yeah, like I feel loved. I feel cared for. Like this is my school." And when you looked at the results, it was going backwards. You know, when I think about the Miss Christmas and the Taylors and the Miss Hoyks, like we have been able to operate in a world that is moving fast, that is ever changing and evolving.
Mm.
And it may be hard to keep up, but we can keep up, right? And I think about, man, I was in MAPCO, what was that, late Monday night.
Mhm.
And the shift was changing, and the guy was new. And so he had to count his register.
Mhm.
And he got the counting that change. He said, okay, it's 75 cents in here, which were pennies. So he counted each one. And then he counted the nickels. And he said, it's 25 nickels. And the manager was like, no, what's the amount? Like you counted the pennies. So yep, you could say 75, but what is the amount of the nickels? And I had to work with him. You know, we had a line, so he was nervous. It was first day, but I could tell he was
Mhm.
struggling with counting the nickels.
Yeah.
And then I just gave him a few strategies, and it was embarrassing, but I just gave him a card and said, "Man, call me, man," because he's at the table trying, but that stuff is what sets you back, and maybe he was loved too, but the education is what he needed.
Real life story. I don't think I even told you this before, John.
Mm.
Somebody that I know, distant family member, was at an ATM. It was at the Thornton's Market over
Yep.
there off of Maya Drive, and they was trying to get some money out of the ATM.
Okay.
$600.
$600. Okay.
He didn't know how. He didn't know how to count it. He didn't know. And I just so happened to walk up. Broke my heart all to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Because he couldn't count out $600. And true story. Like, I called my mama. I was like, man, you ain't gonna believe this. Like, somebody could, you know what I'm saying? He like standing there waiting on somebody to help him, and God sent me in there.
Mm-hmm.
Go get me a coffee. It's been a couple of years ago. But I just never forget that, man.
Right.
Like, couldn't even count out his money. So I need to get this money out. Hey, cuz, I need to get this. You know people call everybody cuz.
Right.
Because, I need to get this money, pay my rent. He had the money, just didn't know how to count it
Didn't know
out.
how to count it. Didn't want to lose it or overdo it.
Yeah, like because I think he couldn't get it all out at the same time or whatever,
Yep.
but he just didn't know how to.
It's a limit.
Yeah, he just didn't know how to, but he didn't know how to put it together and count it. Like, this is $600.
Yeah.
And then count out his money. I was like, man, you in the heart of Madison. I mean, knocked you over your head for this money, And I had to tell him, I had to do the same thing, man. Call me, when you need help, call me. I'll come help you. I'll come take you to the store, whatever. Like, don't get hurt out here. And you ain't by yourself. So, man, we got to do that in our community, man.
Yeah, Kimberly says, well, first let me go back to Miss Taylor. Miss Taylor says, that was me. My kids never had an issue there. That's because I didn't know the data. That's what I was telling you in class, Sonia. Miss Fitzgerald says, good morning. How you doing, Miss Fitzgerald? And then Kimberly White said, they love our children, but don't teach our children. That's what they need for the real world. Yeah.
They need both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, children need empathy. They need love. They need, and people need empathy and love. And people need to, that's what that social emotional learning does come into play, like self-awareness and those things, and being empathetic to other people's needs and what they're going through. And even as adults, I mean, there's an area of myself that had to self-eval to get better at, even as adults. And that's why I always say we can't just do it in the school building. We also have to have that holistic approach where we're kind of mending that element with the family too. Like, how do we make sure that because maybe that's just not something that shows up in the household, and that's why the kid comes like that, because maybe the parent didn't get it either. So what happens, and how beautiful is it when we can make and she said they need the full circle, when we can bring everybody together and we can work on that component. That's when you start to grow the family and you start to make the changes in the community.
It's nothing like seeing a kid who appears just rough and with a hard shell until you give them a hug or they see that you care and their whole demeanor changes.
Where were we at, John? Was it Andrew Jackson? And you said, "Do you know them kids?"
Mm-hmm.
That Thanksgiving thing.
Mm-hmm.
All them little kids was coming in, and
I remember that. They just came up and just hugged your legs.
Yeah, they were hugging my leg and hugging me around. They didn't even know me, and I was like, "No." But I asked myself, well, what was it? Was it like a ray of love that was bouncing off of me? I don't know what it was, but they just felt compelled to just hug me and say, "Hi, hi, what's your name?" And kids, I used to have my hair orange. I remember when I did. I went over to for career day some years ago, and I had orange hair, and the kindergartners came. They said, "We like your hair." They didn't hear nothing. They won't hear nothing about what I was doing. They was infatuated with my hair.
Yep, talk about the hair. Man. And Nicole says the care from teachers promotes self-love and self-pride. But how do we make teachers care when you have a lot in the community that don't care? And I think from that, Miss Chrisman, I think that's where the deficit is, right? So when you operate in a deficit in the community, how do you go back and show up to school fully present day in and day out? And then as we come with a deficit in the schools, because sometimes we ain't worried about educate. We hungry. We ain't had no sleep. We done moved house to house. In 2011, I was working at a school in North Nashville, and I saw it. Like, we had a transient population. One day they'll be here, and the next day they'll be gone because they had to move, because there was a lot going on around Buchanan Street. And so that's what they're bringing. And then you got to ask, was it the chicken or the egg? Was it the people? Was it the community? Or was it the system?
We got to advocate. Like, I had a meeting yesterday with an MNPS official.
Mm-hmm.
She cried the whole time.
Wow.
The entire meeting. I didn't go there to make her cry. I went there to tell her I brought the streets in that office.
Yeah.
I said, there are children literally living in war zones.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a little emotional about it, but there are children who literally, right here in the city, they're living a Babe Ruth all by itself. Like, I've been here all my life.
Yep.
Born and raised in the highest incarcerated zip code in the nation. I have worked on death row with some of the most heinous killers in Tennessee. And let me tell you something. Some of these babies are experiencing things that I have never experienced in my 46 years. And then they have to get on the bus. And they have to But so you may have somebody sitting behind a desk thinking, well, their parents. No. Their parents are living through some stuff that I never had to live through with my good people.
Yeah.
Good people.
And I'll add to that. I mean, I'm meeting parents at the door. This one lady lived like high on top of the apartment on the top floor. And she was like, she moved from one community to this community, and she didn't know it was that bad. And she just thinking, what can I do? Her daughter can't go outside and play. She can't even come in late at night. because she's scared, people outside gonna get her because she looked like a target. And that creates a deficit. And so that's what I mean. Like when I asked the chicken or the egg, is it the people who started with a deficit, or was it a force that created the deficit? And I think
it's a force.
Right. And that's what we fight against.
It's a force. Like I don't care. I don't care what people know I live. Because if you knock on my door, I might go out. But anyway, I don't even give a if you know where I live at. But I moved back. And Corey, I'm gonna address your comment because I don't agree. I want you to go knock on a door or two with us. See, I had this conversation with a TSU student yesterday, and she wants to be a lawyer. And there's a whole bunch of white Americans around, and she was like, and these parents, they need to do this and they need to do that. And I listened to her. I let her get it out. Get it out. And I reminded her there's a danger in a single story.
Mm-hmm.
There's a danger to that. Mm-hmm. I am not quick to say that people don't care, that don't have anything. You ain't got nothing. I'm not finna walk around and say you don't care, because you ain't got nothing. When you ain't got nothing, I can't say you don't care. And if you ain't never had nothing, I'm not quick to do that. I'm sorry. But when you got something, that's a whole nother story. When you got it, you won't give it, and you won't share it, and you won't pour it in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be quick to say you don't care when you don't care. Mm-hmm. But when I knock on the door of a mother who ain't doing no drugs, okay, just pour.
Mm-hmm.
Just pour.
Just pour and providing the best.
Just pour and providing. Now, are there some people that are struggling, or they have a mindset that we don't understand? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But even them people, I gotta walk it back. Before I say they don't care, let me walk it backwards. Let me see what mama's situation was.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see what daddy's situation. Let me see what grandmama's situation. Then I can say, all right, we got a generational curse here. I believe in generational curses. I see them all the time. So I'm not quick to say that people just walk around here and they don't care. Unless they got something, they don't give it, they don't pour it in. Then that's when I think you don't care. When you have the power to change it and you don't, that to me is not caring. But when you are powerless, when you are moneyless, I got to look at the fact of all these things that happen to identify where the behaviors are coming from. I was a welfare mama. I was on welfare. 10 care. Had dinner, had Phoenix Care, had all that. AFDC is what they used to call it before SNAP. Hell, the state of Tennessee paid for me to go to school. Not what happens to us. And I don't say stuff unless I really believe it, unless I can testify to it. We're not what happens to us. And we have a system, whether it's our education system, it's our judicial system, criminal justice system, that looks at us as struggles. Right now, there are people on the sound of my voice, and I'm going to say this because you need to pass this on to people. If you get a felony, if your family gets a felony, if your children get a felony, they got to serve the whole sentence. Ain't no more 30%. You done.
Yeah, and something didn't happen to my camera, but Sonya, that's a huge point. That I mean, we talk about education, but the criminal justice affects our communities, our households. That's a doozy. that's a doozy. I'm working on my camera, but I wanted to co-sign on that one. That's just like when we just said the when they created the 3 strike minimum, and everybody, everybody was like, oh, okay. And the people who in the industry was like, oh, we about to get paid. They celebrating. They celebrated when that passed. They went out for dinner at Morton's, Ruth Chris.
Y'all know that. Like, you get a felony now? Like, they just passed that. We gotta build the knowledge in our community. Yeah, we need some financial literacy. We need some empathy in our community. See, that young lady, that TSU student, I taught her about empathy. You know what she said? Miss Tanya, give me your phone number. I'm gonna call you. I want to go canvassing with you. Miss Tanya, I never thought about it like that. And I'm open to that perspective. She said, but when these mama let their kids be out to 10 o'clock, I said, but did they mama let them be out to 10 o'clock? And she said, I didn't think about that. She said, it ain't right. I said, no, it ain't right. It ain't right that little kids, 3 or 5 year olds, running around at 10 o'clock. No, I do not agree with that. I said, and as a mother, if I see somebody's kid out like that and I know them, I will say something. That's how you change your community. I said, but that's also called empathy and love, and not just walking away and letting stuff happen to our neighbors, our community, our family. That's called also having empathy, but not shaming them. I said, so you don't walk up to that mother and say, you're a bad mother because you let them out at 10 o'clock at night. You have the conversation with them and say, hey, it's not safe. Number one. Number two, they should be in the bed. There was a girl down here on Trinity Lane at the gas station at the Tiger Mart, pulled her shirt up and was dancing. And I was over at the pump. And it was about 5 white men walking over, and she pulled it up. She was, y'all, I think I stuck one leg in the car, started the car up, drove, and look, I'm in my car, and this other black lady, she come running out of nowhere beside my car. John, you remember me telling you this?
Yep.
I had at the time, my 17-year-old in the car. I got out the car. I said, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. You better than this. You better than raising your shirt up. You better than any drug addiction. You better than no, ma'am. You better. I said, you did that in front of my 17-year-old. You modeled that behavior in front of my 17-year-old. No, ma'am. You better than that. God made you better than that. And that young lady started crying. I said, you better than this, baby. You need some money? The other lady pulled out money. She said, here, pull your shirt. The other lady got it too. That's community. That's love. That is empathy. We didn't shame her. We told her she was better than that. She is not. What happens to her? She's probably been raped and drugged out and all. We didn't shame her. What we did was we built her. We built her up. And we also told her right from wrong without shame. And that's what I wanted to teach that young lady yesterday. Because we don't look like we done been through. And that girl probably done been raped and beat and needles stuck up in her arm. But I had to tell her, you better than this, baby. You better than raising your shit up and shaking your breast to somebody. You better than that. And then right beside in an SUV, a guy pulled up. He said, that's my auntie. We done told her. And I looked at him and I said, and y'all need to love on her because she's better than she's sick. She's better than this. He said, yeah, we've been trying to get out the street. A family member pulls up. Yeah, I ain't lying.
Wow.
In my community.
And that's where we were. I mean, I think when I see Chanel's comment of compassion, we all have a story or two where we have had to stop, drop, and roll and help somebody out, and they appreciate it, and the same with that, where you had to stop, drop, and roll and they didn't appreciate it. But like you said, who are we to judge. Like, who are we to? I used to tell people, before you get mad at that person, like, you gotta be mad at the system, right?
You got to.
You can't say, man, I hate that you got locked up, but don't hate the unfair, prison sentences and terms and the policies that they created. Okay. Yeah,
I took care of a white man for about 5 years on death row that didn't murder nobody, and he ended up having MS. I used to have to wash him, clean him, never even did it, and got out with whatever was left of his life. The criminal justice system is awful.
yeah.
I don't wish that on nobody. I don't work in there. I don't wish these children. I have so much pain when I see them being introduced to the criminal justice system.
Yeah. It's hard to bounce back. And again, you got to watch it, because what I remember, the state legislature, they're working on TSIC, working on a new student funding formula. But last year, what they were working on, Sonya? They were working on criminal justice reform.
Ain't no reform. They ain't
Right.
put what the hell the reform doing in there.
We celebrate. They did some reforms. They did some nice things that took away long sentences for nonviolent offenders. And then you know what? The other pendulum had to swing. The other side had to swing and said, hey, while y'all making it easy, we got to make it tough. So we talking about not 30%. 100%.
Y'all listening?
100%.
Laws be passed here and don't nobody y'all don't even know. You know what that same student, that TSU student, she's a junior who wants to be a lawyer. She said, can you have a gun without a carry permit? And I was standing there. Wait a minute. I was standing there with another lawyer. I schooled that lawyer over. I said, wait a minute, let me give you the street talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes and no.
Yep, yes and
Yeah,
no.
that's what they say. No, if you know better, you better go get you a carry permit.
Right.
You don't have the education, you don't have the training. If the person wasn't a threat to you, you're going to jail.
Yeah. And now with the new law, you going to jail for a long time.
Because you got a what? Felony.
Mm-hmm.
She said, what?
Yep.
She said, all these people walking around with these guns and no carry permits. I said, my point exactly.
Yep.
They ain't listening all the way.
You said yes and no.
Yes and no, baby. And look, the attorney was right there. She was like, she telling you right. She telling you right.
Once our communities of color become gentrified.
Who said that?
Ms. Lawson.
She said, I'm interested to see how the school to prison pipeline shift. Once it's not shifting, let me tell you, it's already becoming gentrified. It is in progress. And for most of the communities, they are about 90% complete.
Yeah.
The school system, the problem is the school system is a school to prison pipeline itself. It is the actual port entry. And when you go look at the school handbook, the things that children are being disciplined with, if you look on the side, they have them tiered. They actually look like penal codes from a court system. Like, help me explain it, John. Like, so if I fight, then it's like tier 1, tier 3. It's like charge. Like if you go to court, you get a charge, like attempted murder or stuff. Like actual offenses in school look like criminal charges. Kids are. It was a kid that was expelled last week, and I'm not gonna mention his name. And when he asked for the evidence of the expulsion, they told him he had to get a lawyer. And I told him, no, you don't, because the school is not a court of law. Why you gotta get a lawyer? They ain't the judge and jury. They expelled you, but you have a right to the evidence they have. But they told him he had to go get a lawyer, like they charged him with something. They said, man, you wasn't in court. What they mean? What they talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, the school. Come on now, go to MNPS website and look at the handbook with the disciplinary. You're gonna think you're looking at juvenile court or the court downtown.
Yep. Of course, as I know, I just got on Hunter's Lane about my son. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say this, and then I'm out the road because my battery is dying. But a law back in the day, it was a guy named Fridge. A lot of people know him, but he got caught selling drugs on the books. On the books, it said if you sell drugs in the school zone and you get found guilty, you do some mandatory time, right? But what they were using the law for, they said if you were driving through it, like if you were on 12th Avenue South and you passed Carter Lawrence on the street, not stopping, nowhere near there, they're going to charge you with selling drugs in the school zone. And that's how they were locking people up, getting them to plead, because they're like, man, if we found guilty, we got to do a whole 15 at 100. So we just going to plead out for this 8 and do 30, but then we're going to be on papers, which is money.
Ain't no more of that.
Ain't no more of that either.
Ain't no more of that. Are y'all listening? Y'all better tell some people. I'm telling people wherever I go. I'm telling them about these new laws. Like, you got to educate people. Y'all need to educate your children. Don't get caught up in nothing. Ain't none of that. They need to know the law. They need to have an understanding. All my Bible readers and saints and all that get what? Get understanding. You better get it. You better get an understanding of what's going on. Put on the whole armor of God. That's what that's talking about. You better understand what's going on. You better arm yourself with knowledge. Don't get me to preaching in here. See, I got to talk to the saints and those of us who ain't. Got to tell the truth. But same thing with going back to education. You've got to know. I mean, I've got a parent right now who basically child has been bullied. You know, they use a school policy. The mom is telling them what school policy they violated, and they acting like they don't hear. Hell, I sent an email about one of their policies requesting an agenda item on the school board, and they told me that wasn't what it said. Like, and that's what it say. You gotta understand why you gotta build a movement of people. You gotta understand. You gotta get an understanding, and you've got to build your knowledge. And I want to welcome you into the Nashville Propel family, because without you, we cannot do this work alone. And I don't even want to. I don't never want to do this work alone. I don't never want to do it without each and one of you. And those of you who have joined our movement, you are appreciated. And we got a lot of work to do. And as we close out the school year, somebody asked me what was Propel going to do over the summer. And my response was, we're going to keep doing what we always do. We're going to keep on building a movement of parents. That's what we're going to do. So thank you guys for joining us today. Don't forget, those of you who are in our fellowship. Hey, Ms. Fitzgerald, she said, you better get all the knowledge you can, because they will try to get you real talk. You are so right. Those of you who are in our fellowship, we will see you on Thursday night, 5:45. And for those of you who are not, be on the lookout for our next campaign call in a couple of weeks. Monday, we have our update to make sure we keep you guys in the loop. If you know anybody who is interested in joining Nashville Propel, you can send them to our website, join the movement at nashvillepropel.org, or reach out to one of our organizers. Go and be blessed. And thank you guys for joining us. Have a good day.